Welcome, guys. We are going to get started here. We are doing what the function today. So what are those 12 function keys to the right of the numeric keypad? What do those do? What are the uses for them? All that kind of things. Before we get started, Paul, do you have anything you want to add?
No, just a pleasure to continue to be here and hang out with everyone for a little while.
Yeah. Same here. Appreciate everyone tuning in, and if you go back and rewatch this on YouTube, definitely appreciate that also. We have a couple upcoming streams right now. We have one called Build That Fixture next Thursday, and that's going to be going over a fixture builder, the ins and outs, how to build a fixture from scratch, and some tips and tricks, especially if you're running out of time. And then also how to adjust fixtures. That's a really common one that I get, like how to adjust fixtures that exist in the fixture library already and make them work for what you need. And then on June 12th, so that next Friday, we're going to do one called Welcome to the Third Party. And that is anything third party. So MIDI, OSC, Reaper, and some other apps that are really useful in the hog sphere to control your hog, or to make it a little bit easier, like managing queue lists and stuff like that. And that's going to be with Mark Lorenz. So he is going to be walking us through a lot of that stuff. And then but another one that we're doing. So June 18th, the M&M's a pod. We get questions about macros all the time, and then also merging show files. So that's where the M&M come in, macros and merging. So that's what June 18th is going to go over. So with that being said, let's just jump right into our function keys. So our function keys here, they are these keys right here to the right of the numeric keypad. You have a set of 12 here. You can also, if you're on Hog 4s, full board 4s, Hog 418s, and Hog 4 PC, you actually have the screens above the buttons, and those are going to tell you what your function keys are doing, or what's assigned to that function key. Now, on Hedgehogs, Roadhogs, and in a different mode on Hog 4 PC, you don't have those screens. Am I back?
Oh, no, you just blanked out for a second.
Okay. So on Hog 4 PC, Hedgehog, Roadhogs, when you're showing the nano panel, basically, Hoglets also, they don't have those screens. So with those screens, without those screens there, you can see what you're controlling by holding down Open, and then there's a Function Keys button, and that's going to open up the Function Keys menu on your display. And then you can actually see what those keys are controlling. Now, there's nothing currently on those function keys, so they're all blank here. I'm going to go back to full panel so that I can actually just keep seeing my screens here. And now what we're going to do is actually talk about the two different modes that these keys could talk in. So they're either in kind mode or command mode. You can see what mode these keys are in to the right of the command line. There's a kind, or it'll say CMD, and you can toggle which mode those are in by either clicking on the screen right where it says CMD or kind, or by holding down pig and hitting enter. So pig and enter is also going to toggle between those two functions, between those two modes for the keys, either kind or command mode. Now what are kinds? So kinds are your wheel sets. So we have fixed kinds here: intensity, position, color, beam, effect, time, and control as well is a kind. So these are what type of parameters you want to control. Kinds live in the kind directory. So to open the kind directory, you can hold down Open and then click on kinds. That's going to open your kind directory. Now, like I said, you have these built-in 7. These can't be deleted. These can't be adjusted afterwards, but you can make custom kinds after that. So to make custom kinds, you press the record button, and then you tap in the kind directory where you want that kind to live. So we're just going to hit kind 8 here. Now, if you notice, as soon as I record kind 8, that first button down here now is mirroring kind 8. So we're in kind mode. So these buttons are just going to mirror all the kinds that are inside the kind directory, starting with number 8, since 1 through 7 already exist on the console. Now you can rename a kind if you want to. So I'm going to hit set, and it's going to just give me the option to rename. I'm going to say PTZF, I guess. So pan, tilt, zoom, focus. So that's what the kind we're going to make. So now to actually adjust the parameters on this kind, we're going to open it. So by holding down open and then clicking on that kind, you can open that kind editor. And then in here, you just find the function that you want on the encoder wheel, and then you drag it to that encoder wheel. So I'm doing pan, tilt, zoom, focus. So I'm going to go find pan and then drag it over to that first encoder wheel. Now, when you start dragging over dragging over more parameters, you'll start to get a translucent wheel set underneath. And what this is basically doing is giving you more time, giving you another wheel set. So when you hit this same kind key again, you'll get another set of functions. So kind of like when we select the Soul Spot 2000s and then press the beam button 8 times, we keep getting more options. You can do that with your own custom user kinds as well. So I have pan, tilt, and then zoom, and focus. And then I'm going to uncheck separate parameters for now and hit apply. And then we'll talk about what that did. So now if I select my fixtures 1 through 9 at full, I love when capture works. Sorry, guys. 1 second, guys. Oh, I have bind on. That doesn't help. At full. There we go.
John, your panel shows 5 encoders and how you switch between 4 and 5. You can change the front panel in the settings option on the Hog start screen. You can basically set it to nano mode, which would give you 4 encoders, or you can keep it at the standard Hog 4 mode, which would give you 5. But you do that at the Hog start screen in the settings.
Yeah. Here, I'll just show. We can show that in just a second.
Sure.
Or we can show that at the end as to how to get there. But yeah, exactly like Paul said. Before you launch your show, there's a settings button that you can click and turn on nano mode. I currently have 4 encoder wheels because I have nano mode enabled. If you're using like Hog 3 wings or Hoglet, then having nano mode enabled makes it match that hardware exactly, which is really nice. Cool. So now that capture's working, when I click on this kind, my encoder wheels now control pan, tilt, zoom, focus. So I don't have to hit position to just get pan and tilt and then beam to get to zoom and focus. I can now just hit this one button and we start controlling pan, tilt, zoom, focus. So I can spin my tilt and it'll start controlling it that way. It worked for all of 2 seconds. So now we can control tilts that way. And you can see that tilt is adjusting there. Now, with pan, tilt, zoom, focus that way, if I hit record, what you'll also notice is this custom kind I got added in. It gets puts there for kind masking. So now if I had like gobo information and then iris information, and I didn't want that recorded into a palette, for example, I can just click on this pan, tilt, zoom, focus button, and when I record my palette, it's only going to record those parameters. So let me do that real quick, but capture going again. Visualizer settings. Did it decide? I promise I test all of this before I actually start.
It's all good.
Cool, we're going now. Okay, so I pan, tilt. We'll zoom out a bit. And then change the focus just a tad. And then I'm going to add in a gobo as well. So it's not very noticeable because my focus is bad. Probably zoom too much. Capture is just not being happy today when I do things. So we'll just go by values. We have pan, tilt, zoom, focus, and then we also have a gobo in as well. So we have gobo 2 here. Now when I hit record, and I hit BTZF, so I'm only going to record pan, tilt, zoom, focus. And then I'm going to record this into my beam palette. We can see we have P and B here, and when we open it, we only have pan, tilt, and then the zoom and the focus information. We didn't have that gobo information that I had in there because I selected that PTZF from my kind mask box. So it's only recording those. I don't have to grab everything else. So if you wanted specific parameters inside a palette or inside a cube or inside a scene, then it might be useful to start using these custom kinds in that way. So now we also have in here inside the kinds directory, I said there was that separate parameters option. Some parameters, when you adjust one, they start adjusting the other parameter as well. So like color is a good example on this. So when I start dialing in cyan, we put in values for magenta and yellow at the same time. Well, that's because separate parameters is unchecked for that kind. So if I check this box now, and we can actually do it for pan and tilt, do the same thing. So if I uncheck separate parameters, and I select those fixtures, not in this window, and I select those fixtures, and I hit pan, tilt, zoom, focus. Now when I scroll that wheel, we'll see that pan doesn't have any values there at the same time. So basically these parameters allow us to work independently of each other now. So pan doesn't have any values, but tilt does. Now if I go back and I uncheck this box just to show the difference here again. If I control tilt, we'll see pan gets a 0 degree value. It does whatever the default is or whatever was previously there. So with separate parameters, we can use them independently. With separate parameters checked, we get to use them independently. With them unchecked, we automatically get hard values for that partner function. So pan and tilt is a good example. Again, cyan, magenta, yellow is another example of that. And I believe hue and saturation is another example. That way, you always get a hard value for that other parameter. Sometimes that's useful, sometimes it's not. It just depends on what type of show you're doing at that point. So that's just how we can make and utilize the custom kinds pretty easily. Now, another tip for using custom kinds is also like with gobos for fixtures that have more than one gobo. What you can do is I'm going to hit record, press on that kind, and open it. For more than one gobo wheel, so we have like two gobos here, two gobo wheels here. What we can do is put gobo and gobo rotate here, so that's wheel 1. And then the same thing for wheel 2, just right underneath. And then we can make these two wheels be the exact same so that your zoom and focus stay on the exact same wheels. So if I go to focus here, and you can move the same parameter onto multiple sets if you need to. And zoom, apply. So now that we have that made, when I select these fixtures 1 through 9, and I hit kind 9, we have gobo, rotate, zoom, focus. And now if I hit kind 9 again, we have gobo 2, rotate, zoom, focus. So that just allows muscle memory to form at that point, and then know that zoom and focus is always on those last two encoder wheels. So you don't have to keep jumping around from beam to get gobo 1 and gobo 2, hit beam again, and have to hit beam again to zoom and focus. You just have that one kind, and zoom and focus is always on those last 2 encoder wheels, for example. And this applies to any fixture that has those parameters. So I can also select my solo watches, and with that kind 9 selected, we still have, solo frames is what I selected. We still have gobos here and zoom and focus. Now there's only one gobo wheel, so I can't hit, there's a static wheel as well, my bad. So when I hit kind again, I just don't have that second gobo rotation option. It's only showing me the functions that I have available for those specific parameters. So that's also another use case for creating your custom kinds. It's just to make programming a little bit easier, so you always know where like zoom and focus are, for example. Any questions about custom kinds before I keep going?
I know better than to say no questions currently, but
Well, if you say
no,
it, then they come in.
not yet.
Before I keep going, and while questions might be trickling in, so to get to that option where I was talking about where Paul was talking about for the settings, is before you launch the show, there is a settings button here. You hit settings, and then there's this option for nano mode. So when you check nano mode, it will launch with 4 encoder wheels. If you uncheck nano mode, it launches with 5 encoder wheels. So I'm going to check it to get launched back in. And we're back. So as of right now, I have the visualizer.
I think we're okay. I think so far we're okay with questions.
Great. So I'm going to go back into kinds and talk about auto kinds a bit more. So the console is smart enough. We know what fixtures you have patched, that the console can break up your kinds into smaller kinds of auto kinds. So when you press auto kinds, it's going to say, great, user kinds were generated. You hit OK, and you have a whole slew of kinds also in here now. You still keep the ones we've already made, but you get a whole lot more. This is based on the fixtures that you have in your show file and what functions are available there. So if you notice, now you have one dedicated for framing. So if I do 201 through enter, now I can click on framing. I could have also navigated on my command key or my function keys as well. It's the exact same as just clicking in your kinds directory. So when I click on framing, I just have framing options here. So now it's just pretty simple to start adjusting my framing options. So I can tilt these down, hit framing, and start using my frames here. And then I could hit framing again, and I get the other four functions, and then frame one more time, and there's my rotation. So you can keep hitting just as we've done with like color and beam at the same time. And then on top of that, they also now appear in your kinds menu. So when you hit kind mask, you now have all those functions there to also mask out your timing, to also mask out if you need to. So maybe you needed a beam palette with only framing information. Well, great, you can do that. Maybe you need a color palette with only color mixing information. So great, you can do that. You can exclude your color wheel and just do color mixing because that's an auto kind that was already created. So that makes things a little bit quicker to start getting your kind masking in. So you don't have to go and make your own user kinds every single time. So they're a programming tool, and then they can also be used as a selection tool. I mean, not a selection tool, but they can also be used as a recording tool to only record the information that you want. So I'm going to record a quick look here. Color mixing, saturation, hue. Cool. So I'm gonna record this and adjust some beam real quick. Gobo. Zoom. Cool. So I'm gonna record this onto Fader 10. So now what you can see on Fader 10 is also when we hold down choose under playback mask, we can also mask out our playback based on all of these kinds that we have recorded. So now I can just say, show me pan, tilt, zoom, focus. And I'm going to go into those settings real quick. Mask, make sure mask playback's first selected. And now when we release, or clear out the programmer and then come back, that look only has pan, tilt, zoom, and focus. It doesn't have anything else in it, even though we had recorded information for intensity, gobo, color. Because I masked out that playback with that custom kind, we only see that custom kind information. So these kinds can really be useful whenever you start trying to play back selected parameters or only recording certain parameters at the same time.
So here's a question.
Yep.
In a touring situation, you might have, brand A gear and then run into brand Q gear, and then you do a replace fixtures in the patch. Do the kinds track?
Yeah, so as long as they have the same functions, so like color wheel 1 to color wheel 1, for example, gobo wheel 1 to gobo wheel 1, the functions will be there. So kinds are kind of fixture agnostic because of how we write our fixture profiles. We try to keep functions as similar as possible. So if you have a kind with CMY and you're using it with the Spot 2000s, you change out the Spot 2000s to a different fixture that still has CMY parameters, that kind will work. Now, we only show you fixed kinds based on that fixture having the function, though. So one example of this would be if I selected the Unos, 301 through enter. You can see that a lot of my kinds go dark here because those kinds don't apply to the Unos, for example. So if you change type to a fixture that didn't have the parameters that are inside those kinds, then you won't be able to utilize those kinds. I think that answers the question. So those are kinds. They're really useful. They're a really good programming tool. I like to use them a lot whenever I'm doing a lot of media server stuff. So I can just have quick access. I can make one for media folder, media file really quickly, and then another one for keystoning. That way, I can just quickly tap those buttons and get immediately to those parameters, and I don't have to keep hitting beam. Because if you think selecting your pixel map layer gives you a lot of beam options, media server will have this whole part filled with options to go through. So it just becomes a lot more useful to start making your custom kinds and speed up programming that way. Any other questions about kinds? We can pause and let them come in. Or anything I need to repeat about kinds.
Let's see what happens. Again, I'm not going to say no questions, because inevitably there will be one.
There's always questions.
I mean, kinds are they're pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm. They are. Yeah. And just to reiterate, kinds are fixture agnostic. They just care about the function actually being there.
Can you show how to do the playback masking with kinds again?
Yeah. So you'll open up so you need to get into the options for the cue list. So I'll hold down open, tap choose, and then go into options. And you turn on mask playback. So right now that cue list, without mask playback turned on, we get a lot of color and some beam, gobo information. Now if I turn on mask playback, I hit select playback mask, I can say what I want to mask here. So you just need to make sure mask playback's checked, and then you select what you want. And now when we close it, and then we replay the cue, it's only going to be that information. Now that pan, tilt, zoom, focus doesn't include intensity, which is why we don't see anything. So I can select those fixtures, bring them to full, and now we only have the pan, tilt, zoom, focus information. We don't have anything else. If I go back into options, I could select choose intensity also now, and then hit assert, and now they come up because I've also masked in intensity. So now it's just intensity and then the kinds that are the functions that are in pan, tilt, zoom, focus. If I turn those off and I hit assert, there's nothing to mask, so there's nothing to play back at that point. Then you can turn it off completely, and they'll come back and play exactly what you have recorded at that point in time.
So so you can set it up so you don't oops, I did that. Wait. Paul, can you ask that question again? So can you set it up so you don't oops, I didn't want that list by masking?
I don't completely understand.
So you can set it up so you don't oops, I didn't want that on the list by masking.
Oh, yes, you can. So if you accidentally recorded color in here and you didn't want color anymore and don't have time to actually go and knock out color, you can always go into mask playback, select playback mask, and then you could just do the whole color parameters, and then you assert it. And of course I didn't put in intensity again. What are you wrong? Oh, I'm only doing color. I'm sorry. You can hit add all and then take out what you want. So if I don't want color at that point, I hit assert. It'll come back, but without color. No? Oh, I have color. So this is where you also have to be aware because I had color mixing still added in. Assert. There we go. That's right now. So these will trump. These smaller ones will take priority over your built-in one. So the reason why I still had color was because color mixing was still selected. So you'll just have to be aware of that. And if I turn it off, it'll go back to normal. I feel like kinds are one of those features that you know exists, but sometimes you just need to see the possibilities of using them a little bit more.
Is there any indication if mask playback is on?
There is. There's a little mask that appears inside your cue list, inside your playback bar. So if you look down here, right next to where it says full, you get that mask icon, meaning that playback mask has been turned on. And I believe that is also inside the cue list directory as well. So whether you have the cue list directory open or you're on that page, you'll always see that mask icon if you are masking. It doesn't show you what you're masking, but it shows you that that this cue list has some kind of mask turned on. And that would be the same for a scene as well.
So now that you've generated all these kinds in the function keys, is there a way to customize which ones you see?
There is not. The kind keys always mirror what's in that kind directory. So you have to delete them.
Well, can you move them around in the directory?
You can. So you can, if we want so we could move them around where I could say, if I turn on guard, you can just click on the one you want, hit move, and then choose the place where you want it to go. So I could do that again. And then if I want these all to bump up one more, I could just say kind 10 through 60, move, and then choose the new spot, and now they've all been bumped up to those two spots. And you
can also color code them for our organization as well.
Yes, we certainly can. So I'm going to delete that kind. So if I wanted to do color kinds to all be blue, for example, we can just click and drag, choose a color, and now on those kind keys, they are blue. And then I could say these are red. Anything beam-wise is yellow. And that can be orange since yellow. And this one can be orange since the mix. And now these keys, if you're on a Hog 418, full board 4, or even seeing them on the Hog 4 PC like this, they pay attention to your color code. Same.
They also pay attention with when you show the function keys. Don't they take the outline?
Yes, they do. That's exactly where I was getting at. So when you outline also, so when you go open that function keys, they also take the color code as well. So I can take that and make that a different color if I wanted to. So you can actually start to organize a little bit that way. And then you can also rename them. So maybe color mixing doesn't help you. Maybe you want it to say CMY instead. The exact same way that you change name in every other directory, it applies here. So you hold down set, you press that kind key, and it's going to ask you to rename. CMY/HS. So now it says CMY/HS. So cyan, magenta, yellow, and then hue and saturation. And it also applies to this menu up here as well. So you can move them around a little bit. So maybe you just want one page, you want a page to have a certain functions on it or certain kinds on it. Then you can do that. You just have to space it around correctly. Sometimes when I'm laying out my kinds and I want them in a certain way, I will turn on unlock and start to resize this window into how it makes sense. Which is kind of hard when they start at 8, because you have to get it right. But at least then I know 8 starts where my kinds are, so then I can say every 3, I can start laying out exactly how I want them. And then your bottom right button, once you get more than 12 kinds, or once you get more than 12 that can be on the kind keys, turns into that kind 1 of whatever, and allows you to page through your kinds. If you wanted to navigate backwards through your kinds, instead of going 1, 2, 3, you can hold down pig and then go 3, 2, 1. So pig in that button is going to allow you to go backwards through your kinds. Cool. And I'm going to say, I see one here from Tim.
Yeah, sorry, I muted when I read it out loud.
Makes it a little hard to hear sometimes.
Yeah, is there a way to make the function key window visible with saved views?
Unfortunately, there's not. It's either on or it's off right now.
Yeah, and Paul, to answer your question, you cannot resize the function key window.
No. They are always there. But I think... Can you? No, you cannot. Yeah. But you can change where it is on screen here if you needed to. That way you could make it to the top left or bottom right and stuff like that. And size also works, but it doesn't resize. It just changes it around. Yeah.
It'd actually probably be nice to be able to resize those.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's logged.
I don't know if that one is. I know being able to save in a view is. I don't know. And yeah. But I would post those on the forum to so that we can go and look at them a bit more. I have a feeling part of the reason why it doesn't is because it's purely tied to hardware. So like full bore 4s, Hog 4s, Hog 418s don't have the option to actually pull up this menu.
Right.
But hedgehogs, roadhogs, hoglets, Hog 4 PC all have this option. So that's probably why this is very hardware dependent on what you're on. And then also, if you really want your kinds in a view, you can just open your kinds directory and record that into a view. And they function the exact same way as your keys do, if that makes sense. So you could open up your kinds, and then we could record that as a view. And then if I close it, hit that view, it's going to open back up. if there are no more questions with kinds, we're going to talk about commands a little bit more.
Ooh.
I know. Some people consider them more fun than kinds. It depends on who you ask.
I think we're good.
Great. So let's toggle that mode from kind to command. And our keys are going to go blank again. So in the hog, there's this other mode for these function keys, and that's called command mode. So they turn into command keys. There is a directory for commands. So if you hold down open, tap on commands, it's going to open the command directory. Anything that goes inside this command directory gets mirrored to these function keys. So, and how you put things into, so what can commands hold? Commands can hold lists, scenes, groups, palettes, views, batches.
Pretty much any directory items, right?
Yep, any directory item except for kinds. That is the only thing they can't hold. So you could put, like I said, views there, macros, plots, anything that is a directory item except for kinds, they can go into command. So this makes it really nice to have views easily accessible, so you don't have to go and tap on the view up there. Or maybe it's like view 1000 and you don't want to have to you can't hit that bar to go to view 1000, for example. Or it's just really quickly to toggle open a programmer window exactly what you need. That would be another use case for commands. So let's actually try that real quick. So I'm going to open up the programmer window and I'm going to record this as a view. So hold down record, tap on here, rename it. So now if I wanted to move this view, so it's view 12. If I wanted to move this view to a command key, we just hit view 12 and then move, and we tap the command key we want it to go to. And it's going to move that command, or move that object to the command keys. Now this is a pure reference, just like pages reference scenes or reference lists. The command keys reference the original object. So if I delete something from my command key, it's not gone from the show file, it's just gone from the command key itself. So now if I hit close all, and I tap on this command key, it's going to open exactly like it did on this view here. And that's kind of the point of the command key, to execute whatever object you have there. Now another use case would be to move a list to the command key. So if I want to move list 1 to my command key, I can just say list 1 move, tap the command key, and now it's there. If I click on that command, it's going to go to the list. And then if there were more queues, it would keep going the list. Since you have a list there, you can hold down to release the list from the command key. You hold down pig, and then you click on that command key, and it releases the list or the scene that's there. So pig and the command key releases the playback object. Go. Pig in that key is going to release. So like I said, command keys can be used for any show object. Commands live in the command directory. So if we, commands are not there. Hold down open, tap on commands, we get that command directory and everything's here as well. What's really nice about the command directory is you can actually execute everything based off the command directory as well. So I can click on list 1 here and it goes to list, just the exact same as if it was on my function keys. I hold down pig and I hit the command key, or I hit the command from the command directory, it releases the list again. Again, the exact same as your command key, as your function keys. I hit programmer and it's going to adjust that view to open that programmer view, just as whenever I hit programmer down here on my command keys. So the commands directory can also be a really quick way to organize your show file however you want to as well. Only show you the items that you want to be able to execute at that point in time. You can move plots there, all that kind of stuff can be moved here as well. Commands, when you have an object that is like a playback object, so it's not like a palette, it's not a group, that kind of thing, you have different actions. So you can actually click the spreadsheet button and get different actions here. You can change what your target type, so you can see what your target type and what list number you're going to, or like I said, you have this action column here. So we can say on list 1, instead of go, we can either have it be a go, pause, back, or flash. So this actually makes your command keys be a little bit more useful than rather than just a go. So instead of having to waste a fader to flash the RGB bars in the back, we can actually put that on a command key if we wanted to. So I'm going to go through that real quick. So 401 through it full. I'm going to default my color so they always go white. And I'm going to adjust my fade time to 0. I'm going to open the programmer here. We can see our fade time is going to be 0 times 0, enter. And I'm going to record this as a scene. So hit record, scene. We'll just record as scene 1. So now we can move that scene 1 to the command key. I'll put it on this one. So scene 1, move, choose, or not choose, select the command key that you want it to go to. And now you have that key there. So when I click on that scene, it's going to go. When I click on it again, it's not really doing anything. It's just kind of going because of that. Those scene options are just left to not really do anything. So we're going to open that scene. What's really nifty about the scene already being on the command keys is we can just interact with it without going to that directory right away. So we can hold down open, click on that scene, and get into the scene editor or into the scene options. So we're going to go to standard here. Our action at end of scene, instead of we could leave that as do nothing since we're going to make this flash key. We could also change that to be our toggle to the add release end queue. Right now we're going to leave it as do nothing. We're going to change our release time to 0 seconds. So now it's still going to act exactly like we saw before. But to make this a flash key, we also have to put in some other options here. So underneath the standard tab, there's a go on flash, release on off option. And this is going to say when I push down the flash key, like if it was on a master, for example, when I hold down that flash key, it's going to start the queue or start the scene. When I let go of that flash key, it's going to release the scene, which is what we want. So right now, we've done nothing really with that command key besides move the scene there. So if I release the scene, I go, it just, again, acts like normal. So that's when we go and change the command key action. So underneath commands, open commands, on scene 1, instead of go, we're going to change that to flash.
So this is kind of more or less making it a toggle.
So this is going to make it like a true flash key now. So this flash key, this command key, when I hold it down, it's going to go. When I release, it turns off. So I hold it down, it goes, release, it turns off. Just like if I put scene 1 move on my fader 8 here, I hold on my flash, I can even bring my fader down. I hold on my flash key, it turns on, let go, it turns off.
Yeah, and I guess if you wanted to make a toggle option, you would turn on latching for the flash key.
Yeah, so either you can turn on latching here, which I believe would do the same. I
think it would stay on at that point.
Oh, wrong one. Yeah, and then you hit again, it turns off. Or save yourself without having to do the action thing. If it's a scene, just turn on add release end queue. And when you turn on add release end queue, and your commands is still set to go, it's going to do the same thing. So hit go, it turns on, and then it releases. Capture decided to stop responding because WebEx came into view.
Can command keys be toggled so that if I need to open a view just for a short moment and want to go back to the previous view, I could just press the command key again? I don't think that would work with views unless you had 2 different views in the command key.
You are correct, Paul. So you can't do it that way. You could set like you could have a view down here, like 2 views on your command keys, and you can just toggle between the 2. Yeah, so you unfortunately can't make it to where you hit a client, hit a view, it goes, and hit it again, it turns off that view. That's not how views work. So that's not how command keys work. Because all the command keys are doing is referencing whatever that view says to do, or whatever that show object says to do. And then I think if I turn it into spreadsheet, the only thing is additive versus not additive.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't think that's going to work.
So So, kind of following up to Bud's question here about there being like a toggle option, which you were kind of sort of giving options for as it relates to a scene. He was thinking in terms of you turning on a hazer and on and off, but then followed up and asked, "What about a fader that's designated IPCB fader?" And I think it would still just take the properties of that fader master.
Yeah, it's whatever you have set for that cue list or scene or whatever you have set, because this is purely just referencing there as to what you have set there. So if this was set to IPCB, I mean, my button here, it doesn't do anything with the fader. And so it's still going to go and it's still going to release. So I hit it, it goes, hit it again, it releases. So you could use this as like a hazer on off. We have that set up, honestly, at high end in our demo room for our froggers. So you hit the button, it turns on, hit it again, it turns off. It just makes it a little bit easier in that way. And those are set as two-step cue lists. So Q1 turns it on, Q2 turns it off. So we just go and then go and then go. So we're not releasing a list. It just stays on basically while the demo's going. So this is really just all the commands are referencing whatever the object itself actually is. Yeah. I don't know if it actually answered Bud's question.
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, if it's designated an IPCB fader, that's really more in line with the actual physical fader option, which is probably not going to be very effective as it relates to a go press or what's equal to a go press or a flash.
Yeah. Like, if you have something on the fader, it doesn't really matter on the command keys. Because your command key options, again, are go, back, pause, and flash. They aren't... I'm just so in the habit of clicking and holding to get to where I want to go.
He's saying, Bud's asking if I want it to be an IPCB on a flash button like I would have on a fader.
I don't...
it would kind of be the same as a go.
Yeah.
I don't know that it would. I don't know that because that's kind of the IPCB fader is kind of based on manually controlling the crossfade to a degree, whereas having a play press is going to be based on either a go with fade time or a flash.
So right now, I think I set that as an IPC. Yeah, so it's set as an IPCB crossfader with my fader down. If I hit that button, it's still going to go. My scene is still set to go. I hit it again, it's going to release it. It's probably releasing it more so because I set my option add release end queue. So that's why it's releasing it. If I hit do nothing, I hit scene, and it's not doing anything the second time I push it. So it's still setting a go. It is not doing anything with the fader wise.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you toggle the scene again? If I wanted to, if you can go over it again, I tried it and it didn't work.
So you hold down open, tap on that scene, go into options, and then set at action at end of scene, instead of do nothing, hit add release end queue. And when you hit add release end queue, now when you go that scene, it's going to either go or it's going to turn off. So go or release. Because that release end queue is saying, hey, release this object. The reason why it is snapping on and snapping off is, yes, the fade time set to 0, but you also have to go into your options and change your release time to 0 as well, because you're releasing that option. Because you're releasing that scene.
Tim asks, is there a way to assign soft keys to control without creating a macro?
There is not. You cannot put a soft key onto a command key. You would have to hit record macro and then change your steps to select that key. So a lot of people will record a macro to go into the segments and hit like segments of 3, for example, or segments of 2, so that when they fan, they can quickly get crosses, stuff like that. And then same thing for select evens and select odds, is they'll record those macros and then move them to their command keys. That way they can quickly just say, hey, select my even, select my odds, invert my selection or whatever, without having to take their hands away from the programming surface necessarily. So that is a way, that is something that people do, and unfortunately without macros are necessary for that. There's no way to do it without a macro.
Cool.
Great. So I wanted to go over something with views that pertain to commands, because a lot of people, like, we made that view that opens that programmer window, but if you notice, we have if we put other windows behind it, for example, or with it, as soon as I hit that programmer button, they all go away. Something that's really useful when you're making views like this, that maybe you just want to be able to hit programmer and the programmer opens on top of what you want. That is a view option that you have. So if you open the view directory, so hold that open, tap on view, there is this additive column. And what this additive column is going to do is say when you execute this view, it just gets added on top of the windows you already have open. So I'm just going to double click on it, hit for it to toggle to yes. I close all. I can go in here, open some groups, and change the effects engine. And all of these are set to not additive, so they're not saving. And then whatever I want here. Now when I hit this programmer view again, it's just going to open exactly where I want on top of all of the windows I have open already. I can close it. And again, it's just open right on top when I recall it. Now when it's not set to additive, so when you open that view, when it's set to no, when I execute that view, it's going to close all windows. So this is kind of something that can be a little bit, so that's just something to be aware of if you don't want all your windows to close when you record a certain view. So like I said, we can also put palettes there if we wanted to, plots, all that kind of stuff. So you could really have, if you really wanted to, 3 separate buttons just for pixel mapping right there on your command keys. So I know that's group, so we could have a group 61 for our RGB LEDs. Move, choose here. I can then, I'm probably going to have to make another palette for that, but my plot 1, which has my RGBs in it, we can move that to here if we wanted to. Move here. And then I'm going to open that group directory one more time, and I think I have one for my pixel map layer. I have guard turned on, so I can just click on the object here without selecting the fixtures, move, and choose here. So now, instead of having to open all my windows, I can just hit here, select my RGB LEDs, select my plot 1, enter, and then select my pixel map layer at full. Pick open beam to open my media picker, and my stuff is pixel mapping. So that's just a way you could make like a row just dedicated to pixel mapping if you wanted to. You just move the objects that you want there, and then you can start using them exactly like if they were inside your windows on your console. Boom, enter that at full. So at 100, enter, and then start making content, and it'll start going. We could have also just done a color palette here that had the RGB LEDs assigned to plot 1. And we could just hit all RGB LED, select that palette, and then pixel map layer and go in the exact same way. So it just makes it a little bit quicker to start accessing things, especially whenever you start needing things quickly on the fly. Usually if people have like macros built for their pixel map layers, that also goes on a command key. That way it's just, you tap that one command key, the macro gets executed, and then you can start programming with your media picker and all that good stuff for pixel mapping. So the command keys can really speed you up, whether you're programming or whether you're even playing back. Once you might, again, there's only 12 command keys here, but if you open that command directory, open commands, there's a whole slew of commands that can be inside this command directory. Once you can start getting that next page button exactly like we did, exactly like the kinds key had. So I'll move the Unos there. Just, again, once you have more than 12, so once I get to 13, I start having my Unos there. So I can start placing things exactly like that. The kinds key is usually when I turn on an unlock and I wrap it to 3. So I can quickly lay out my command keys however I want to. And just quickly see how they get adjusted down there. Now, if another use case that I've really seen for the commands directory is if you're setting up the console to kind of be like one and done, so you did like a fixed install. There's a club in town that has this, and for their VJs, what they do is they just have all their lists and scenes being able to be fired out of the commands directory. That way, if something gets deleted from the commands directory, so like I delete scene 1, and it's asking me, do I want to delete scene 1? Yes. It's still inside my scene directory, so I still have my scene 1 there. So we can just move my scene 1 back to my command if I want to, and it's still going to work the exact same, and it's still going to be there and still going to be able to be fired. So there's no accidental deleting if you're inside the commands directory. Great. I think that is what I have for commands if people have questions now.
Nice.
Something I do... Yeah, is there a question before I...
Can you make function/command key for tap master speeds for chase and dim effect?
You cannot. Those are only done by holding down choose and hitting go. So if you have a chase going and you want to control that chase speed with like a BPM, you can hold down the choose key and hit the go button right below that choose key and tap out the tempo. And as you're tapping out the tempo, it'll change that speed. So that's by holding down choose and you hit go, and that'll change the BPM. On a command keys only functions go, pause, back, keys. So unfortunately, that means you can't use that. You can't use your flash keys to set that. And Hog does not do tap tempos or effect speeds for effects. So it won't work on effects either.
I think we're caught up for the moment. Let's see if anyone chimes in.
So a workaround while we're waiting for questions to come in, because I know there also might be a slight delay. I think there might be a slight delay on some things, on some people. A workaround that people do, like I said, kinds can't be on commands, is they will make a macro, so like the record macro, they toggle, and then they click on the kind that they basically have the macro select the kind they want, and then toggle back into command mode, so that you would hit, it would say pig enter, select the kind that you want, pig enter again, and then that would be the whole macro. And then that way they tap that button on the command key, it selects the kind, and then it comes back to their command keys. That gets a lot if you want a kind if you want all of your kinds to always be mixed into your command keys, but it is a way to get around that kinds can't go onto the commands section of the console. You could also just record a view on your command keys that open the kinds directory, and then you can tap on your screen that you want those kinds to be open, that for the kind that you want, and then go into your previous view that you were in. Yeah. And then always remember that your SKU lists, and I'll go over this again once we talk about macros and merging, but in your macro section, there is a recall view here as well. So if you wanted to say, great, when I go scene 1, I'll put scene 1 back onto my master. Back onto my command here. When I go scene 1, I want to recall view 12. You can do that as well. So I go scene 1. It's going to recall scene 12. I might not have a scene 12. I should. No, it didn't hold. But so you could also recall a view with your commands. So if you wanted to have set up that toggle view so that you can say, great, I'm in programming, but I hit this command key. I go to like my pixel mapping view and I tap that command key again. I'm back in my playback view. You can have that set up as like a 2-step queue list. So Q1 recalls a view for your playback, and then Q2 recalls view for your pixel mapping. And then you can always just hit that command key once and you go to your program, to your queue, hit it again, and you go to your other queue. And you might see here on list 1 where it says Q1. So you could even label that queue here. So I could say spot down. And then you'll get that label there as well. So you could even put in the view name. Of course, it has to be kind of short. But you could put in that view name there for Q1 and then the view name for Q2, and you can quickly see what queue is there and what view you currently have open as well. And again, these are all color coded. So if my scene 1 has a color in it, it's going to be reflected here on the command keys or on your function keys. And if you go into your commands directory, they also reflect that color. So your command keys are going to reflect the color of whatever's in the directory. If you apply color to the command key itself, it will also reflect it it'll change it back into your scene directory at the same time. So whatever you do to the objects on your command keys gets reflected into that directory. So if I go and change this here, the name here, it also changes it in the scene directory. So just be aware of that aspect as well. You can't customize colors from commands versus their directories.
Yeah, right on.
Cool. And I know I mentioned a couple of times of recording macros. Remember, we're going to do this is me teasing. We're going to do a macro video. So I'm going to go over how to specifically record those macros and kind of utilize the command keys with those macros a little bit more in that macro video.
How we doing out there, guys?
Yeah. We're being kind of quiet today.
It's a little quiet today.
That doesn't mean don't ask questions, and we're here to answer your questions about these things. And that's kind of all that I actually had for kinds and commands. So if you guys have questions, this is kind of we are opening it up for Q&A, whether or not it pertains to kinds and commands at this point.
Yay, Q&A.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Keep up with the videos, please.
Awesome.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim. We definitely will.
Trevor, I missed how to switch between kinds of commands.
So to the right of the command line, right where you see CMD, you can just tap there and toggle it that way, or hold down pig and hit enter, and And that's going to toggle your kinds or commands as well. So pig enter is the keyboard shortcut. Tapping where it says kind or command will toggle it as well. I like the keyboard shortcut a lot.
Johnny, why can't you tap typo in effect? Can y'all update that? I believe that is long since logged.
Put it on the forums again. Make it apparent to us that it's being requested again. I know it's been logged. I know we've looked at it. I can't give you as to why it hasn't been implemented. Unfortunately, I can't give that answer. But if you log it on, put it on the forums again, it will get another +1 to that feature request. The more we see the want, the more chance. I can't guarantee that it's going to happen, but the more chance that it will happen. I know it's been requested. I know it's something that users want. So yeah.
Excuse me. Does going from different command pages have an effect like when you change pages? No, it does not.
That's a good question, though. I have not been asked that question, but that is a good question. It doesn't, like Paul said, it is not affected. It's just like if you were playing for the directory at that point. So changing my commands does not actually release that scene. And if I delete it, ask away, it only released it then because I deleted it, but it's not going to change it.
Megan, during a previous video, you mentioned how to change base settings of a fixture, i.e. that I have a fixture with the default zoom of 50 and I want to change to 100%. Aren't you going over that in an upcoming video?
So that, we are going to go over in fixture building is like if you need to move, zoom is on channel 1 instead of channel 5, for example. But I
think he's talking about editing fixtures.
Yeah, if you just need to change that parameter value, like that default value to 15%, then you can go into your fixture window and go into edit fixtures. And this is going to allow you to change your default values for a lot of parameters here. Now, something that's really useful, because by default, we order it by user number. So like 1 through 9. What I would suggest doing, since you're probably going to do, is go sort by function instead. And again, it's still sorted by fixture type, but that's good. But now you have your intensities grouped together, your pans, your tilts. So if you needed to change that zoom, instead of by 50%, which is what we give you by default, to 10%, you can just click and drag on them, or you just click in the header part, and it's going to highlight those, press set, and then you can type in what your new default is. So now that zoom is set to 10%. When I select those fixtures, the zoom is 10%. Because that's what the default is. So we can go back, change that to 50. And it's going to go back to its default of 50. So that is the way to change your default parameter value. A lot of people like to do it for tilt, so they're just not pointed straight down. They can be at like a 45-degree angle, for example. So as soon as you turn it on, they're just not straight down. Again, that's in your fixture window and edit fixtures. And then my tip is do sort by function. That way you group them all together at the same point in time.
Paul says to set up a keystroke macro for pixel map and use the function key, what would that look like?
You record the macro, move the macro to the function key. So I'm going to do this really quickly, but this is something that we're going to go more in depth on in the macro video. Plots. So I'm going to do it the way that I normally wouldn't do it, because again, we're going to go into more in depth on macro stuff.
Sure.
But this is just to do a outline of how this would look. Plot 1, I see the pixel layer at full.
You're offering a teaser.
Yeah, so record macro. Sure, just going to macro 1. So I can say RGB LEDs, apply to the plot, enter. I click the enter button here. Great. Then we can say pixel map layer. Oh, all kinds of messiness. Pixel map layer at full. So now it's at full. And then we can do pig open beam so that it immediately opens the media picker for us to choose content from. Then I can pig macro, end it, and then move that macro to that fader. So macro would move, choose here. Now when I go that fader, now when I tap on that macro, it's going to step through and choose its options. And it does it in real time. So it's going to take a little bit to get all the way there because I was talking and pushing buttons. Full pig open beam should be hit. Cool, and we're here, and I click on it, and it's there. Of course, nice. You'll want to shorten it up, all that good stuff. But
which we'll go over next time.
Exactly. Yeah, we're going to go over that next time. And we're going to go... So if you're like, oh my goodness, that was so long, like I don't see the need or the want to do that, well, there's tips and tricks to make it shorter and all that good stuff. And to not... my tip is to never require... screen presses, because when you go from console to console, the screen presses change. We're going to talk about all of that in the macro video on why those changes, all that kind of stuff.
If I'm running a time code pre-can show, can I move my hazer from the fader to the command key and expect it to work the same? Yes, it should.
Yeah, it should.
Because when you move it to the command key, it's obviously less the fader. Mm-hmm. If you're using the fader to control volume or output, once you move it to the command key, it's just referencing that cue list.
Yep, and just make sure when you are in your cue list, make sure that fader is right down here. You can't see me point on my screen, but I'm pointing on my screen where that highlighted blue intensity is. Make sure that says full before you move it to your command key, because if it says 0%, then your command key will do nothing because intensity is set to 0%. So,
and Joey, your off-topic question is: the Nano Hog 4 still supported and work with the current version of Hog 4 PC? And the answer is yes.
Yep. Completely supported. Still a Hog 4 wing. We just released the Hoglet, which is a little bit smaller. Right? That was the only difference. And it has a built-in... and you can get it with built-in super widget automatically. Because I think the Nano was sold in a model that didn't have the super widget.
The Nano always had the super widget, but what was cool about the Nano, if you could get your hands on one, is it was big enough. It had an expansion slot. So you could actually add an additional internal super widget or a MIDI SMPTE widget to the back of the Nano.
Yeah, that was cool. And then on top, what I've seen in repair, came through repair one time, was that I think it was a Nano Hog, it had to be because it was bigger, but basically that empty slot, they cut out parts to where they had like a mounted HDMI out, and they basically put the internals of like a small PC inside their Nano Hog, so that they were just carrying around their Nano Hog, and they would just hook it up to the monitor that they needed to at that point. Like there was no extra PC that they had to set up, because it was just inside. There was enough space inside the Nano Hog that they were able to put it all in there. It's an interesting setup.
Yep.
Yeah, and then John said, and nano docking. Yeah, there was a third-party thing for
Arcus
Nano.
Lighting in Germany developed the Nano docking station, which was kind of like an all-in-one PC, had a touchscreen. Mm-hmm. You docked your Nano to it. It was actually really clever. Mm-hmm. I remember at One Pro Light and Sound, they had some prototype models that, like, one was like leopard print fur, in different colors and stuff like that. They were really cool.
That's fun. Yeah, but that was a pretty cool accessory also. Cool.
Any other questions? Anyone?
With no more questions, I am going to show that up next again. That way people know.
Cool.
coming up.
Nice work, y'all. Thanks for the free info. Sure.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks Johnny.
And again, so here are the videos coming up again. We have Build at Fixture. So next week might be come with all your fixture builder questions. And we will work through them. Not like, hey, can you build this fixture for me type question, but like, hey, what is why would I want to use this function in the fixture builder? Like that kind of question. Then the next day, we're going to do Welcome to the Third Party. So learn about third-party control. So OSC apps, MIDI, some other type of apps that can work. Utilizing Excel to actually format your cue list and whatever you want. And in the right order, give it names, that kind of things. And then on June 18th, the next one we have planned after that is going to be merging in macros in Hog. So how to merge show files. And then how to write some macros and some use cases for macros. Again, thanks everyone for coming by and sticking with us for about this hour-ish long time. And then we'll probably, and yeah, all that good stuff. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. You guys, are we ending it here?
Yeah, we're going to end it here unless there's more questions that trickled in.
No, I think we're okay. I think we're caught up.
Great.
Well, see you next week, guys.
Yeah, see you guys. Stop recording. Stop sharing. I have officially stopped recording, so.
All right. One of the M&Ms should be memes. Nice.
Oh, that would have been better for. I was trying to come up with the 3 M's of Hog, but I couldn't figure out another M acronym to use to put in there. Because I'm like, I know macros is going to take a while, I'm assuming, because of questions, but like besides that, there